Welcome into a Week 8 Giants Hangout brought to you by Crestron. My name is Madeline Burke alongside Russ Salzberg and Matt Sytek. And guys, not the season the Giants would have hoped for so far, coming off a tough division loss against the Eagles. One of the glaring things that head coach Brian Daboll pointed out after the game was that, the Giants are kind of still in need, Matt, for some explosive plays this season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, last week against the Eagles, the longest play was only 14 yards. And this came 1 week after against the Bengals, the longest play was 15 yards. Now, as an offense, you don't want to solely rely on those big explosive plays to be able to move the ball down the field, but you need to incorporate them in the offense to help get everything else going. It helps get the run game going when it has to respect the threat of a deep play. It helps even get the short and intermediate routes, those sort of passes going. So getting some explosive plays back into the mix of this offense has got to be one of the top priority to Monday's matchup.
Well, believe me, I agree with that. And it has to be done across the board. But while we're talking about explosive plays, 28-3, as you mentioned, we need for explosive plays on offense. We need to, but it's not just that. We need to have better blocking. You can't have your quarterback sacked 8 times. Now, we understand Andrew Thomas went down, but, this is the NFL. It's next man up. We need to get first downs. When a guy catches a ball, he can't be 2 yards short of the marker. He's got to be at least within 1 yard of the marker. So maybe it can be a third or a fourth and one. There are so many things across the board that really need improvement. And guys have to be able to ball. But listen, I'm not taking anything away, then moving to defense, taking anything away from our dearly departed Saquon Barkley. But talk about need for explosive plays. They just allow 269 yards with on the ground. That can't happen. And all you heard Lawrence after the game, it's got to be 11 men. Everybody's got to do their job. There has to be improvement across the board.
So the pass rush is still doing its job, but as we discussed, it takes an entire all 11 guys to do it. It doesn't just having a great pass rush doesn't make up for the fact that your run defense is not playing up to par. Now, you spoke about Saquon before. He obviously had an amazing game, but when you look at I believe he had like 17 runs. If you look at all 17 runs, the Giants did a great job on 14 of those runs. On 14 runs, he combined for, I believe it was 41 or 42 yards. The issue was the other 3 runs went for 80 yards, 50 yards, and 40 yards.
That's exactly what I said. While we were talking about the need for Giants offense explosive plays, we have to stop on defense the explosive plays. That's exactly what I was talking about. You can stop them 14 out of 17 times, but if the other 3 times are going for 100 yards, it doesn't do you any good. And,
right.
Talking about Dex, listen, let's be frank. The team is 2-5, and right now Dexter Lawrence is the defensive player of the season in the National Football League. But you know what? If you talk to Dex, he doesn't care about his sacks if the team is giving up those yards. It's got to be a complete, what do you call it, complementary football in all facets of the game. And believe me, you can see Brian Daboll's face. You can see the owner's face. You can see everybody's face when they were leaving the stadium. That has to improve across the board.
I mean, even in training camp, I remember Dexter Lawrence talking. I mean, this man's not shy of understanding how good he is at the game of football. And he said something to the effect of, listen, I don't want to be alone at the Pro Bowl, and like he knows that he is a Pro Bowl caliber player and he wants to elevate the play of his teammates so that he's not alone at the Pro Bowl, so that other Giants players are also playing at that same level. And we have a lot of success in individual spots, but it's about putting it together as a collective unit consistently, because it's, we've seen at times this season the ability to put that together and to create a successful outcome. Look at the way things went in Cleveland. Look at the way things went in Seattle. It's possible. It's just not consistent yet. And when you look at the consistency, the need for consistency, especially heading into a primetime game, it's going to be important And, we talked about the explosive plays needing to get going in the passing game, but also the run game. You had Devin Singletary come back last week, and it seems to be that, they're still figuring out how or where to use each of these guys. And both Singletary and Tracy have some incredible strengths. Matt, how do you see the Giants kind of igniting this run game moving forward?
Well, I think for starters, it's going to help. We don't know exactly who the offensive line starters are going to be this week, but if it is the same unit that we saw against the Eagles, then it at least will help that it's the same five guys working together for the second consecutive week. Because as we discussed earlier, the loss of Andrew Thomas, it cannot be understated how big that is, how big of a blow that was to the Giants offense, but it's next man up. And, if it's Joshua Zudu again at left tackle, or if Coach Dable decides to switch up the left tackle and right tackle, as he discussed the options last week, whoever is out there, they need to work as a unit to create running lanes and create space for the running backs. I mean, whether it's Devin Singletary, Tyrone Tracy, it's going to be tough for them to get positive yardage if they're getting hit at or behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, forcing missed tackles, yards after contact, those are great and impressive stats, but there's only so much of that you can ask your running backs to do. So it's going to take the guys up front working as a unit to really get push on the line of scrimmage. And also, just to go back to the explosive plays, when a defense has to respect the threat of a deep ball or a pass even 20 yards down the field, that's going to take maybe a guy or two out of the box, which should open up some space for your running backs to gain more yardage.
You know, everything we're talking about now makes sense, but getting even away from the stats, it's still football. It's running, it's passing, it's tackling, it's catching the ball. And when we talk about complementary football, listen, what was it, a couple of weeks ago? They go into Seattle, arguably the toughest place for a team to go on a road. It's a long trip. It's all of the above. They're 12th man. The Giants go there without Malik Neighbors. Yeah, they go there without Singletary. And what do? They come up with a game that was outstanding. And then I don't know what's happened since then. Yes, we know about Andrew Thomas, but it's just, listen, I'm not a coach. I'm there every day as you guys are there every day. But, I know I'm saying, talk to a blue in the face. It's just that consistency. They have to, you hear the players themselves say complementary football, and we're not seeing that. Thus, we're seeing what's going on at home, and that's not good, and that has to improve.
Right. And, and again, at home, on the road, wherever it is, when you've got a Monday Night Football game on the horizon, bright lights, everyone's watching, and you're going against the Steelers team on Monday night in Pittsburgh, who's coming off a primetime win in Sunday Night Football, the first time Russell Wilson has started at quarterback this season. Justin Fields got the team through the first 6 weeks, 4-2 record. Russell Wilson comes in at first. It's looking like, I remember watching that game, and every time Russell Wilson would have a moment, they would just pan to Justin Fields on the sideline in his helmet. But by the second half got going, they mounted a comeback win. We saw that moon ball on full display, as Chris Collinsworth calls it. Just that high arching deep pass. But also Russell Wilson, 11-5 on Monday Night Football in his career, the fourth highest win percentage of a quarterback on Monday Night Football since 2000. And then Daniel Jones, who has struggled to throw touchdowns in prime time and hasn't had a touchdown pass on Monday Night Football in the last 7 games in prime time. So when you look at this matchup on the road with the terrible towels waving, Matt, what stands out to you?
What stands out to me is, Russ was just talking about how tough it is to go into Seattle and play. Well, going into Pittsburgh on prime time, I would put it right up there near Seattle.
Almost just as bad, Matt. You're right.
Yeah. So this is going to be a very, very tough and hostile environment for the Giants. And we just, honestly, the most important thing is to go back to what Russ said, complementary football. I mean, what the best way to help your defense is to help keep your own defense off of the field by sustaining drives. Now that's going to be tough to do against the Steelers defense. I mean, the Steelers defense is one of the best in the league. They're elite against the run, which, that's going to make it a little tougher for the Giants to establish the run. But, you mix in maybe a deep shot, some explosive plays down the field, all of a sudden the Steelers defense has to respect that and switch up their defense a little bit. And they can't just, stack the box to try to stop the run. So it's going to take, on offense, it's going to take complementary football, as Russ mentioned, the run game, the pass game, blocking, everything. Everyone needs to bring their A game in this game. And on defense, the switch to Russell Wilson, it does kind of switch up the Pittsburgh offense a little bit, because with Justin Fields under center, he is more of a mobile quarterback that is a threat to run with the football. And I would say not as strong of a passer as Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson certainly has some weaknesses in his game, but he's an accurate passer who can still throw the ball. So now that Russell Wilson's under center, the Steelers passing game looked a lot better on Sunday night against the Jets, which is another top defense. I mean, George Pickens, he had a lot of buzz coming into the season. He finally lived up to it Sunday night. So yeah. Deonte Banks, I would assume, would be matched up with George Pickens for a good amount of the game. He's going to have to do a good job, sort of like what he did against DK Metcalf in that Seattle game. And they're just going to have to, again, get after the quarterback, play complementary football. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but as Russ said, it is the most important thing for both sides of the ball to do on Sunday night.
Well, and as you mentioned offense, too, when they're, I was just going to say, Russ, when they're playing from behind, also when Pittsburgh was playing from behind, you saw that passing game in full effect. So, Russ, that's also something that even if the Giants are able to get out ahead of it and score early, they got to be mindful of that.
Well, yeah, but I was just going to say, you beat me to it. The Giants, they got to try and grab themselves a lead. If you start playing from behind, that forces you to what? To pass the ball. And if it's forcing you to pass the ball, the defensive linemen of the Steelers is just going to strap their helmets on and let's go after Daniel Jones. That's why it's imperative for the Giants to establish a running game so it can keep them off balance. If they don't have a running game, Daniel's going to be in for a long evening, and it's very important to get that going. Well, again, we're repeating ourselves, people, and I know that, but complementary, and consistency, and 11 guys. I know it's all football cliches, but when you look at the situation, that's what it is. It's just getting it done together, 11 men strong, and that's what has to be done.
Yeah, especially against a Pittsburgh defense that's allowing just 14.4 points per game this season. That's second fewest in the league. This is a stifling, as Matt pointed out, a stifling defense. And against a Giants team that has shown that they've struggled a bit to score this season, it's going to be a matchup. And I think that if you're the Giants, this has to be a defensive battle. This has to be, all right, nobody's scoring points, and whoever gets there first wins. Is that a fair assessment? Is that a fair way of saying that this could be the strategy of obviously finding a way to get this win on Monday Night Football?
Well, I think to call it a defensive battle, yeah, it's certainly fair, but I think, I was going to allude to something. Listen, that was Malik's first game back the last week. So again, that's another week under your belt. We don't know, he can say everything is fine. We don't know how everything is fine, but now it's another week feeling healthier. I think the guys, there's I think I've used it when we were talking here last couple of weeks. There's an expression in boxing. When you punch somebody, when you hit somebody, you have to hit with bad intentions. I don't mean, God forbid, cripple somebody, but hit like you mean business. And I think the Giants have to hit like they mean business, both offensively and defensively.
Yeah.
And yeah, just looking at both of these teams, I mean, there's no denying that the strength of both the Giants and Steelers lies in both of their defenses. I mean, again, the Steelers, one of the top defenses of the NFL. They have one of the best red zone defenses. And despite, last week, the Giants gave up touchdowns on all three of the Eagles' trips inside the red zone, the Giants still have one of the top red zone defenses in the league, despite that. So I definitely think that for the Giants to come out on top, it will probably be low scoring defensive battle. I think one of the biggest priorities for the Giants offense also has to be and you're not going to shut him down, but to contain TJ Watt, because TJ Watt is right up there with Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, now Dexter Lawrence as one of the best defensive players in the league, without a doubt. He has, very quick get off the line of scrimmage speed. He's one of the fastest off the line of scrimmage in the NFL. And he primarily lines up over the right tackle. So that is why my personal opinion, I think Jermaine Illuminor will stay at right tackle, at least for this week, because they want to match him up against the Steelers' best player. And that, gives the Giants the best chance, I think, of at least slowing down the Steelers' pass rush.
Well, it's like what we were talking about before, establish the running game. Hey, Matt, you notice if it's not done, we were talking about the defensive players and pinning their straps back. TJ Watt, if he knows they can't establish, if the Giants can't establish a run, he's going to have a target, a bullseye right on Daniel Jones. So, that has to be done. But Matt, you brought up an excellent point before. Really good point. I didn't know what the number was. Of the 17 carries you said that Saquon had, the Giants defense did a good job on 14 of them. That's great. But again, stopping, as much as we need the explosive plays on offense, we can't get hammered by the explosive plays on defense. And I've argued that. I even said that last week. When we were talking against Cincinnati, it was, what was it? It was 3rd and 12 late in the game with 2 minutes and like 12 seconds left. 3rd and 12, excuse me, since he had the ball on their own 34. So chances are, if the Giants get a stop, they're going to get a chance to at least tie the game. The score was 10-7 at the time. 3rd and 12, a 29-yard completion. And I said that last week. Those are the big explosive plays that has to be stopped on defense. We lauded the Giants defense for how well they played against Joe Burrow and Cincy. But you know what? If you're making 99 out of 100 great plays, but the 100th play bites you on the rear end, then it's no good. We've got to prevent those explosive plays.
Well, and to the point you made earlier, Russ, that complementary football really stands out in that way, because if the defense is on the field for that long, it doesn't matter how stout that defense is going to get. They're going to get tired. They're going to get worn down, and they're going to give up a big play after a while. So it's about that complementary football, the defense doing their job on the field, the offense doing enough to give the defense a breather and a moment to kind of, gather themselves before getting back on the field and finding that way. And, the Giants are going to continue to adjust to the absence of Andrew Thomas, who's out for the season with Liz Frank. They're going to continue to adjust to the absence of Kayvon Thibodeau, who's out on IR with after his wrist surgery, and continue to adjust to the myriad of small, injuries and ailments and managing that we have at this point in the season. But it's a big one on Monday Night Football, and everyone's going to be tuning in watching Giants and Steelers.
I'll tell you what, the one thing I will say with Kayvon going down, Azeez has really stepped up. He has really stepped up. In fact, he's playing like a guy with bad intentions. He's playing hungry. He's playing like, I'm in there now. I'm going to show everybody what I have, what I still have, what they thought I had all along. So that's one guy who deserves some praise, is Azeez Ojulari.
He has been playing well. Only thing I will say is that the going from Kayvon to Azeez, while the production has basically not skipped a beat in the pass rush, I feel like the Giants' run defense, you can feel the loss of Kayvon. That is a very underrated part of Kayvon's game. His like strong performance in the run game, and at least against the Eagles, that sort of his absence sort of was put in the spotlight. And that's nothing against Azeez. Azeez has been great as a pass rusher and really stepped up with the opportunity. Now it's time to see him step up a little bit in the run game as well.
Absolutely.
Along with everybody else.
Yes.
Yep. And the next opportunity, the most important opportunity, Monday Night Football, Giants, Steelers. We'll be breaking that one down with all the Giants content, giants.com. All of our podcasts will continue to preview this one as well. But that's a wrap for our Week 8 Giants Hangout, brought to you by Crestron. For Russ Salzberg and Matt Sytak, I'm Madeline Burke. We'll see you next week.